has gone viral on X, and it's a female police officer explaining to a group of British Muslim men that it's free speech for a Christian to preach from the Bible in their neighbourhood. And it's definitely an example of the opposite of woke policing. Let's take a listen.
I hear what you're saying. In this country, we have freedom of speech, the same way you guys have your freedom of speech. Now, you guys don't need to see eye to eye, and you don't need to agree, and you're all more than welcome to stand here and have conversations with them, but they're not being aggressive. They're not.
Someone girl come here, hear this, you never know, he might get smashed up.
That's their risk. That's their risk.
I told the police, because on the way, I heard them say an offensive word about the religion. I ignored it, I came back. On the way, he's talking about a prophet, then he said, like a donkey.
So he clarified to your friend what he says.
Yeah, but it's like, no. You know, if I could misunderstand the word, but when hundreds of people are stopping, because what he's saying, there must be something wrong.
It's contentious though.
Yeah.
It's a contentious area.
So why is he doing that? Yeah.
He has the right to do it.
What's the moral of the story? Is he allowed to do whatever he do?
Yes.
Now, that was a great clip. The sound wasn't perfect, but I think you got the flavour. A group of British Muslim men who were unhappy that there was a Christian person saying Christian things out loud in their neighbourhood. And a very interesting post from a journalist and commentator called Khadija Khan, who has written the following. How difficult is it to comprehend that there are no blasphemy laws in Britain? Criticising, scrutinising, debunking and even mocking Islam like any other religion is not a crime here. She goes on to say, bravo to the police officer who refused to back down and defended free speech in the face of this Islamic zealotry. She says compared to many British politicians, including Keir Starmer, she seems to have more guts to call a spade. Well done. Well, Khadija Khan joins me now. Good morning, Khadija.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the programme. Your response has received a lot of plaudits online. What were your emotions when you watched this video and you saw a policewoman standing up for free speech?
Yeah, it beggars belief, really, that it is happening in Britain. As I said, how difficult it is to understand that there are no blasphemy laws here in Britain. We have a right to criticize, scrutinize, debunk, and even mock religious belief, including Islam. And it's not a crime here. But by the so-called reasoning of these Muslim fundamentalists, they wouldn't be allowed to practice their own belief in this country. The first principle that defines a Muslim is called the Shahada, in which Muslim professes that there is no true God but Allah. This proclamation effectively denies the legitimacy of all other religions. I think these individuals, including myself, we should all appreciate living in a free, democratic country where we have a right to freely practice our beliefs. We don't have a right not to be offended. And this is the price that we pay for living in a free country. And I commend the police officer. Bravo, really. She stood up for free speech. She refused to back down and defended free speech and the law of this country in the face of Islamic zealotry. She knew the law and she had the will to implement the law. This is all she did. And it was extraordinary, given that we don't have this kind of will to implement the laws of the land among the political elite in this country. And I think we have to understand that what is the most disturbing aspect of this incident is that these fundamentalists, they felt so emboldened to assert the superiority of their religious belief in a social sphere. And that should worry us all. Regrettably, these religious fundamentalists, they have been encouraged by the policies of appeasement, which have been designed to keep the calm, as they say, in this country. But it's not working anymore.
No, it isn't working, and it's unusual to see a police officer stand up for free speech, Khadija, isn't it? Because we've seen the police turn a blind eye to the so-called weekly peace marches in which anti-Jewish sentiment has been expressed and which people have walked around with signs saying globalize the intifada, which means bombs on public transport and in football stadia. The police have been asleep at the wheel when it comes to tackling extreme Islamism.
Couldn't agree more. We have to be honest about one thing, that religious fanatics, they undermine the very concept of human rights, feminism, and religious freedom in order to impose their own intolerable ideologies on society. It is time for the British politicians and the authorities to stop infantilizing Muslims. I think they need to wake up to this reality that we do have a problem with Islamic extremism in this country. This unwarranted infantilization is fueling the extremist attitudes in certain segments of Muslim communities. It is sinister, insidious, and it suggests that Muslims are somehow incapable of facing criticism of their beliefs and that Islam is without fault. It's just perfect, which is, of course, not true. When problem arises, the viewpoint, this infantilization, implies that they are solely due to the distorted interpretation of their faith. Such a perspective is both outlandish and misguided.
And we have another... Yeah, go on.
As you just said, that we have a problem of growing anti-Semitism right now in this country, and it is because we have been blinded by the unhinged political correctness, and this narrative that somehow religious sensibilities ought to be prioritized over human rights, and people should not be protected, but the fragile religious sensibilities should be given priority in social
absolutely. And Khadija, very briefly, if you can, what's worrying about this clip is I think some of these British Muslim men, they're not even extremists, and yet they think that somebody speaking a Christian scripture in their community is hate speech, and they think that where they live should be protected from any Christian voices. That's a dangerous place to be.
I would say that I couldn't agree more. We have to make this one thing very clear, that we live in a country, in a free country, where we have a right to criticize religious beliefs. We have a right to debunk and denounce religious belief. And this applies across the board.
All of them. Jews, exactly. Christians, Muslims.
Exactly. Islam has no privileged position in this society. And these bunch of extremists and fundamentalists, they have to understand this thing, that we cannot prioritize religious sensibilities